Hafa, my name is Ryan. I'm the president of Pinpoint Guam, and you are here with Data Points. Today, we're going to be talking with Andy Park. And Andy, I don't know what his title is, but he has 8 businesses across Guam. He's in solar, he's in the visitor industry, he's in food distribution, and they're in real estate. And one of the reasons I asked Andy to come on is to give us his take on the Guam real estate industry and the challenges that he faces as an entrepreneur, a business owner, and an owner of real estate enterprises on Guam. He has so much information and knowledge, and that's here for you. If you like this content and value it, please give us a like, share, subscribe, or save at any of our channels. Looking forward to hearing from you. Andy, welcome. Thanks for joining me. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on is because your footprint across real estate is so diverse. Energy, technology, food and beverage, hotel, and on the distributor side too. So can you tell me a little bit about your businesses and the areas you're involved in and how you effectively came to be in the place that you are?
It's mostly all family businesses. We do a total of 7 businesses. Just going through real quick, it's the food wholesale, the petroleum wholesale, the hotel, commercial real estate, residential real estate, the drone, and the restaurant, right? And those are all, again, family-run businesses. Energy, so there maybe 8. And the question was, what's...
Tell us about, well, you define your areas that you're there. Tell me about your economic perspective on Guam and the real estate industry.
The real estate industry, yeah. So I guess in general, the real estate in Guam is it's kind of struggling now. I would say for sure it's the commercial side. It's definitely struggling more also because in Tumon area there's a lot of lack of businesses trying to start up right now with the tourism as bad as it is right now. The real estate, in terms of the, I guess, residential real estate, there's just a lack of homes. It's pretty obvious, and it's been kind of a big issue that's been coming out a lot. For us, we started our residential side pretty much when COVID started. We purchased a property that had roughly 72 units, mostly studios. Originally when we purchased this, we're looking at roughly $700 per unit per month. With that math, we put it in and we're like, okay, well, this works out. Let's try it. At the end, after we were done with the renovation, we looked at the market and we're like, oh, actually, it seems like it's gone up a little bit. Let's try 900, but we're not going to sell anything, right? It starts selling out like crazy. Now we're definitely full, and we have a wait list. So I think it shows that there is a huge lack of residential real estate, especially for the locals. I mean, there seems to be a decent sized market for the military. That's still not being fulfilled. It's I think it's oversaturated. Where I feel like for the residential, there's still a lot more that can be done. But of course, that's the easy answer of it. But of course, the difficult side of it is if you've ever done a renovation for a new real estate for residential, there's always the issue of permitting. Construction is always very difficult here. Resources in general is so difficult that it takes a lot longer and it takes a lot more effort than it seems. Out of a lot of the different endeavors we did, that was definitely one of the difficult ones.
So what I've heard you say is it's hard to do business on Guam, but you've managed to do it with your family over the years. But it wasn't hard enough, so you decided to do harder stuff like renewable energy. So can you talk to me about that?
Renewable energy, we kind of just fell into, and this is, I think, one of the great things about Guam, right? It's like if I try to do renewable energy in Korea or US, I'd have no chance, right? There's just so many experts out there. There's people that's done it for decades. If anything, their degrees are in that sector. On Guam, though, when you look around, there's a lot of times when you go into industry and you're like, hey, there's only a few players there, and they're good, but then they're overwhelmed. There's too much stuff for them going on. So that's how it kind of got into the renewable. Because GPA does a great job of pushing renewable, of making sure that Guam's more sustainable and not hedging bets against fossil fuels, and of course there's also EPA that's also of course pushing Guam to have stronger renewables and less reliance on fossil fuels. So because of that, with phase 2 of renewable that GPA put out, a lot of the Korean companies were strongly interested in this, and we were able to reach out to a couple of Korean companies, and the fact that we're U.S., so we're working on the dollar. It's close to Korea, and a lot of times the Korean company and GPA is credit worthy, and a lot of times the Korean companies, they want to go out to different countries, but certain countries are too far, so that Guam was perfect for this, and it was relatively in a global scale, it's a relatively smaller project. So we were able to work with Hanwha on this. We worked with them for a long time. I know, I'm not sure if you know, recently their contract did end up getting terminated. But yeah, with that, we were able to learn, we were able to build a team with this. We were able to learn a lot more than I would say more of the other competitors out there have in terms of utility scale solar. And it gets, involved with not just local government, it gets heavily involved with federal side, right? There's a tax credit program that you have to utilize. It's a 30% tax credit. I'm sure you guys have seen this before. And with the Biden administration, the Inflation Reduction Act, they did a lot more things to make it more developer friendly, I would say. And now we're trying to become one of the major players of utility scale solar here on Guam. With this new phase 4 that we are now working on independently without a foreign entity joining us.
So with that, right, I want to go back to the beginning of your journey with solar, right? Never been done before. What is the kernel of that idea look for you? Or, okay, I'm going to get into solar, and what are your steps? Like, how do you do that?
So for, again, the utility scale solar, there's a lot that you have to understand with how the federal tax credit system works.
No, but it's more so like, where did it start with you?
Oh, okay.
Like you as man, solar is really cool. I know how I got into real estate data, right? So tell me about like how you got into that. How you got into solar? Like, hey, solar is a good idea. I'm going to make a business out of this.
Yeah. Well, okay. So one, there's mandates from local government stating that we need to get 50% renewable by 2035. I think it was, and then there's of course there's a huge tax credits, right? So because there's the EPA that's pushing U.S. EPA that's pushing GPA to do more renewables. So it seemed like an opportunity that this market's going to grow no matter what, right? By law, they have to grow, right?
Yeah.
So because of that, we're interested in this, but then at the same time, I was lucky enough to work with Hanwha, which was they're a very strong player in the solar space. So we were able to learn from one of the bigger companies, while not having to put too much of a risk on our side on doing one from scratch without any knowledge. So I think it was organic, right? It ended up being that we ended up learning a lot to the point where after a while we're saying, hey, we could do this on our own.
No, but how did you end up working for Hanwha?
Oh, Hanwha, it was just really it was just a connection of a connection that we just got a meeting and then we told them about this. And the funny thing is they actually was already kind of monitoring Guam.
No, but what industry are you in that created the connection to, or was it just like a...
It was just a personal connection. Yeah, personal connection that we just ended up meeting one of the top guys there. And again, I think the reason why we ended up meeting, some of the key players there was that because they were already looking at Guam. Mm-hmm. So when we reached out to them, they said, "Oh, this is perfect. We were looking at this, and whenever we do a project like this, we need a local partner."
Okay, so you're seeing all the writing on the wall. You're seeing the consent decree. You're saying, exactly. And like, oh, there's going to be this huge market, and you have an understanding of this. You have a master's in computer science, right?
Computer science, yeah.
So you're into technology. Were you always into solar technology? You're just trying to come up with opportunities.
No, at that time I was just looking at the opportunity. It wasn't anything specific of that I was kind of monitoring or anything. It just happened to come up.
Yeah, just reading the news, like technology, and just like I understand this. And then so based on that, you said, well, shoot, I know all these solar companies or these energy companies in Korea.
Yeah, that was that. Sorry, and also because we were already doing a little bit of petroleum and it wasn't really petroleum; it was more like lubricants.
Okay.
Products for GPA. We kind of had an ear in the ground of what was going on there. And then that plus the idea that, again, the renewable coming up and the fact that a lot of the major players were Korean, that were kind of hitting the market. I think it just was a perfect chance, right? And honestly, at that time, I haven't been to Guam that long. I haven't moved back. It hasn't been that long since I moved back. So I was kind of just chasing everything, right? Yeah. I was still young. I didn't have kids.
Well, that's what happens when you're young.
Yeah. So I was able to, I would say that's the one out of typically 9 out of 10 I tried, it doesn't work out. That was the one that did.
But that's the entrepreneur journey, right? And that,
Yes.
that's kind of one of the things I like to talk about here, Andy, is that journey. And that's kind of why I was digging to, right? It's just like, where was the thing that's like, hey man, this is interesting. And then from there, it's like, well, this is interesting to me. But I have this business that I haven't thought about in this way. It's a relationship, but I have a relationship. And now it's like, oh, I have connectivity. I'm Korean, right? And even if I'm not Korean, I can reach out to companies in Korea that have familiarity, and I can just say, hey, what's up? My name is, and would you be interested in doing this? And I have a relationship with GP.
Exactly, yeah. And then I think with the solar especially, it's real fun and interesting because things are always changing. Mm-hmm. Minimum, your things are changing in terms of pricing. Like, people monitor lithium all the time. People monitor, PV panels all the time because they are consistently changing, right? And so it's a little bit exhilarating in that fact, and that you have a financial model today that could be different, a month from now, different from a quarter from now when you're actually going to purchase, right? So those things are always changing, and it's a little bit almost like gambling a little bit sometimes.
No, it's that. So let me tell you, I have respect for the scale and the speculative nature of these projects because I've worked on these projects from beginning to end, from site selection to the planning, to the bid, to the exit, to the tax equity component, right? Okay. And I understand the packaging of it and understand, like, man, we started one before COVID.
Yeah, okay.
And then that shifts, right? And then speculatively, we don't know what the line run is here, and then this law changes, and then what's the power grid? So, man, just the idea, the speculative nature, but the massive sheer size and the amount of money.
Of course, yeah.
And then even the collection apparatus. Hey, we're dealing with the Korean government here. What are we going to do if we need to collect?
Yeah.
We have to go to war. There's economic sanctions, right? So those questions all really come up as a function of that. And those are problems that need to get solved. But that's where the juice is, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like, I would think the appeal for a guy like you is to get into the industry like that is like, we can do these huge things, but we can do these huge things from right here in a market that I know. We only can do them because I saw the opportunity and I put myself out there and I asked the question.
Yes, I agree. Everything you said was correct. I mean, there's certain certain things did align well for that time, of course, in terms of the tax credits coming out.
Nine times it didn't.
Yeah.
Nine times it didn't, right?
Yes, 9 or 10 times it, of course. Yeah, there's a lot of people know that I'll be seeing a GPA bid or some random bid and always the last one or something. But then just every now and then you get lucky, you find something that matches well with what the needs of one of the agencies need, right?
That's not luck. That's not magic. That's taking advantage of opportunity. You got to where you are today in business, and not just you, your family. How have you guys been able to position yourself where you're across 8 industries and you're in things of significant scale? What has been the driver for that for you?
Of course, it's definitely the fact that Guam is, a small island, small community. So it's easy to kind of hear what potentials are out there, compared to, somewhere, one of the larger countries out there. So I would say that's like the main factor. And, after a while, you notice that a lot of the industries do bleed together. Obviously, for us, like the food wholesale with the hotel, or the food wholesale with the restaurant makes a lot, has a lot of similarities in there. And again, with us, it was the petroleum side, which we're supplying lubricants to. GPA end up getting us into solar, and I think it's. Are you born and raised in Guam?
I was. Yes.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Guam too, right? And I think after a while, not after a while, you kind of just were raised to understand that, be good because everyone's going to know what's going on, right? It's hard to keep secrets on Guam. And I think that's why a lot of times when the foreign companies come in, like sometimes when some of the Korean companies or some of the American companies come in and they try and do something that's, not, goodwill, I would say, it gets caught immediately, right? And that's just Guam. I think we're just raised to know that that's the way it is on Guam. And I think when you have that, then you get a certain reputation of knowing that you're not someone that's going to screw you over, that someone that's not going to just do something just for a quick buck or something. After that, then then there's a certain amount of trust that you get, right? And I think there's most people that who do well on Guam have that mentality that it's not about getting the quick buck. It's more just to keep integrity, and I think then people will help work with you on different things. Maybe that's how that's kind of how actually the drone went too as well. Into Dong, he was actually going to work with somebody else, and then we talked to him a little bit, and he's like, "Oh, this sounds interesting." So he asked me if I would be interested, and then that's how we ended up working together, right? Because we were doing the Korean Chamber at the time, and then we worked together, and we thought we both liked each other in terms of the mentality of working, and I think that kind of ended up leading to, all right, let's try and do this drone thing together, and now we're doing well. We're getting a lot of good projects. We're actually getting a lot of projects outside the island too, and we're trying to do a bigger. We're calling it the mega project, but trying to scan the whole island of Guam.
Well, I'm going to be a partner with you in that mega project.
Of course, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But for me, I think that's what's missing in a lot of ways, the networking, right? And I'd love to see, you were behind it with Korean Chamber and just in terms of the entrepreneurial networking. I think that's coming to fruition more. I think the professionals are thirsty for it. Every time GYP does something, people show up, Chamber, they come up. And so it's important for young professionals to make sure you engage in that way, because the solution to your business, the relationship, is effectively sitting across from you at a table, and you just need to say hello in a lot of ways, right? Just like Andy did with the solar providers, and that turned into a significant opportunity, not just for you, but your whole family.
Yes, yeah.
So tell me about kind of the familial legacy here, right? You were born and raised here, right? But so how did your family come to be on Guam?
I think originally my dad came over because he was part of the military service. He was here with I think with Hyundai. Mm-hmm. That's why there's even a lot of remnants of Hyundai being here a long time ago. He was here with that, and he saw opportunity here after he finished his military service. He came back. It's typical story of coming with nothing but the shirt on the back of his back, and then he built it up very slowly. But he was very very hardworking. I mean, still to this day, very hardworking. He's in terms of hardworking, I've never seen anyone work that hard. And he's still in the office every day. He was just in the office right now. That's kind of why I was a little late today, because he stopped by the office and kind of talked a little bit. But yeah, I think for him, he started with that, and he started doing the wholesale a little bit early on. This is back in the 70s, right? This is before a lot of the Koreans moved in. He was one of the first that moved in. And he'd tell me he'd get a van, fill it up with canned goods and candies, and go around the island. He'd do that 6 times, 7 times a day. People down south loved him because no one would come by for days, but he'd be there multiple times a day. Right. So I think that's and I think that's also the case too. Is that I think I heard Sang kind of mentioning this earlier, but the generation of my parents, and that older generation, Korea at one point was the poorest country in the world, right? I think even that time, like poorer than Ethiopia, like poorer than a bunch of the countries that are known to be poor, right? And they built themselves from that to what now the 10th biggest economy. They call it the miracle on the Han, right? I think because they had that mentality of work hard to survive kind of mentality, and then on top of that, they left in the 70s where it was still slowly starting to come up, that they still have that mentality of working hard and making their own way. Where I'm not putting anything down of current Korean I guess mentality, but I do see that now it's a little more lax and a little less about having to work every day kind of idea. Where I think that's what our parents' generation has, and that's a lot of not only my dad but my dad's friends. I see the same situation.
Tough times build grit and resilience, and
yes,
that makes
exactly.
you very tough to compete with.
Yes, I do agree.
Nobody quits. So for you, having parents like that, so where do you gain your own confidence and say, I am my own person? And where was kind of like the turning point for you, where you're just like, you're actualized?
I mean, still to this day, I discuss with my dad, pretty much anything major that we do. I don't know if I do things on my own, because I do. I think I rely on him heavily on mentorship, and even in Korea when I was doing a startup, I had great board of advisors that helped a lot. But I think hands down, my dad, still to this day is the best mentor I've ever had. Wow. Still a lot of times in the beginning when I first came here, it was things that I knew were very difficult, but he'd break it down and make it a lot easier, or other way around where things I thought was very easy and he'd show how potentially difficult that could get. And I think, to see in those different perspectives, because he has obviously a wealth of experience, 50, 60 years now, 50 years plus now of experience in business. So, there's just certain things that experience just can't beat, right? Mm-hmm. And I think still to this day, I still learn everything from him. I still learn a lot from him on a daily basis.
Well, tell me about the hotels, though. Tell the hotel specifically. What's that business like right now?
The hotel is, right now, of course, is not the best. The hospitality is not the best industry right now. It's, with the tourism being down so bad. And, for us, when we decided to do renovation was right before COVID. We decided to kind of, fix things up because we had a bunch of businesses and they're all doing, decent. But then the hotel was always kind of struggling because it was old and it needed renovation. We decided, okay, let's renovate. COVID hit and we're like, should we still do it? And we're like, I think people want to travel after COVID, so let's just do it now. And then by the time COVID's kind of done, they'll come back in droves, but that never happened. So we're always kind of in that situation where we know we have a good product, we know we have a good hotel. We're hearing good reviews and everything. It's just the tourists aren't coming in. Understandably, the exchange rates are bad. There's not as much to do in Guam. And I think because COVID reset tourism in general, they found new places to go to. So I think hopefully with the new leadership at GVB will get better. Hopefully with the administration trying to help with tourism will get better. But as of right now, it's not the best. It's not the best industry to be in, I would say.
Yeah, it's tough. So one of the things that we talked about is kind of the speculative nature of the solar enterprise. And you deal in real estate, and so you understand data is important in a lot of different ways. And I would think from the visitor industry, you'd be frustrated because what data do I have to analyze how I'm leveraging my location, valuing my properties, seeing what's happening around me in the economy, or on the solar side, what infrastructure is nearby? What terrain do I have to deal with? What are the mineral rights? Tell me about how those types of things work against you in your overall business operations and how the government can improve those things in your favor.
So I guess in terms of data collection, you're definitely right. There's a lack of data that the government helps provide, and in the local aspect, I would say there. In terms of tourism, I do feel like that is a little lacking. But at the same time, though, there's software that you could input into your own industry into your own system that can assist significantly, right? So just for example, our hotel uses a cloud-based PMS, property management system, that's specific for hotels, and it gives us a lot of data actually. If anything, I've even used AI to kind of analyze some of the things to see what the right price point is, things like that, right? That definitely helps a lot. In terms of, I guess, the solar side of it, there is a lot of data that you could very often monitor. Like I mentioned, lithium prices is something that you could take a look at often. And there's also projections that you could see often. And I think in terms of the solar side, there's a lot less that has to do with the local side of government than it does with federal or global. So that's a big plus because that is a huge industry. So they do have a lot of data.
I'm talking more to site suitability.
Site suitability. Oh, okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah, great. Yeah, then something like the drones definitely help a lot. Your traditional surveys would. So when we go for a solar site, you typically you want 15 degrees change in elevation, stuff like that, right? So then when you do traditional surveys, they go and pinpoint out a bunch of different locations, and they typically do like 10 feet or roughly 10 feet, right? With drone data, when we did it with drone, you get it down to 1 feet contours. You get it down. You get millions of data points, and you can even simulate where the water would rise quicker. Things like that will help you make sure that your financial model, and when you guess your civil work, or when you guess certain types of construction costs are going, it gets a little more accurate, you get a little more safe in the understanding that this is going to be a more of a concrete number than not, right? There's so many different variables that could happen in your financial model, and you're trying to make sure that those variables are reduced down as much as you can.
So how deep do you get down with your modeling for your sites? Do you do like progressions in terms of water runoff analysis, so like 30 years based on your site selections?
Yes, of course. The surveyors and the engineers and the architect engineers will have to do all that. Right now, for our current phase 4, we're not there yet. But again, and that's also a business aspect decision on how much money do you want to spend right now. Do you feel confident enough that if you spend it now, it's going to be worth it down the line? Because sometimes you can work on a site and realize that it's not worth it, right? And then that's just end up being sunken cost. One great thing that we have is we have a full team that works on this on our phase 4. There's four of them. One of them being extremely well knowledge in solar. He has over 1 gigawatts worth of expertise. He's for someone like him, he really understands where the good cutoff line of putting your pre-engineering in phase. So I think that the know-how definitely helps a lot too in terms of managing your expenses.
I see. So what do you think the opportunities are in the market coming?
Sorry, for which?
The Guam real estate, like just Guam in general, like real estate industry. Like, you have such a wide footprint, right? Where do you think the opportunities moving forward would be?
So definitely for the next 10 years, I would say. Military, obviously, that's the big one, right? That's the one that's keeping Guam really afloat. But at the same time, obviously, there's a lot of players already in there. So I mean, yeah, if it's in the near future, I would say military is definitely one of the bigger ones. If you have any capability to do something with the military, that's great. If it's past 10 years, I don't know. A lot of the times we get into new industries, it just kind of happened to happen at the time.
Right.
We see that there's something going on. We see the writing on the wall that there's something potentially going to happen. One that's been clearly on my mind since day one, and I think now it's getting more exaggerated. I'm hearing a lot more people saying that this is a potential good industry is with the tariffs going on, with the tariff wars going on, if this is going to last for a while.
No arbitrage.
Yeah, so the fact that Guam is exempt from this tariffs, right? But we're still U.S., so we can ship to the U.S. That's a potential there, right? And this was so back in 2017, 16ish. We was it 2017? Anyways, we bid for the prime vendor for the military.
Oh, for the IDIQ.
Yes,
right.
yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
And then when we look at that, we're buying shrimp. We buy shrimp locally, in Asia, right? But then the prices we get has to be from Buy America, right? So you look at U.S., it's like triple the price. And I was actually thinking at that time, maybe we just create an industry here where we could help package and add 15%, some certain amount of value, make it U.S., right, and then ship it off to all these other places.
I was marketing a lot of shrimp farms back at that time.
Oh, yeah.
a lot of rivers were near the mouths of bays were being looked at for sure. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's that's a potential industry that there's a lot of need for U.S. made products. Another one is actually drone too. Drones, you can't fly a drone inside a military base without. They're called blue UAS.
Okay.
You have to utilize those American made drones. So even that's a potential industry that you could manufacture here, or you could do at least something to make it more of an American product. Right. I mean, there's a lot of endless opportunity for that, and I know Gita's been trying to push that for a while, but I think there's no one that actually bid on this.
Are you manufacturing drones?
No.
Oh, okay. So you're not into manufacturing?
No, we're not doing any manufacturing, but I think that's a potential industry that Guam can be, because being a very unique situation where we're in Asia but we're U.S. territory, right? There's a potential for us to kind of feed a lot of the either Buy America Act people around industries around us. Or the other way around, to bring it to the U.S. with trying to minimize some of the the tariffs or any kind of other issues that.
So was the drones just to facilitate your own need for solar, for survey and stuff?
No. It was a completely separate situation where Dong had the idea of trying to do this company, and I saw there's a potential opportunity. And I think that was the other aspect of it, is that because we were in development and we worked with a lot of solar companies, or we're working with not only our solar but we talked to a lot of other solar companies. We saw the pipeline of how to create a solar project, and then seeing how there's so much stuff that can be more efficiently done.
And then when you have the horsepower.
Yeah, and then when he started talking to me about what drones can do, I was like, oh, this is exactly what a lot of developers need.
Right.
Not just solar, but just
everybody.
Yeah, anything that's a larger scale project. Right. Maybe not like a small quarter acre home or something like that, but then something that's a larger project. You do need something that get things quicker and a much more efficient price.
Right, but there's value. You have a need, and in that need, you create a map. And having that capacity, right?
There's also, so what we did before too was we also, there was one time when they found a UXO and unexplored ordnance. It was outside the base, so they weren't required to do any scan, but then, there's drones that hold magnetometers, and we did this for the 200-acre lot. We went through and we did magnetometers, so we see where all the ferrous material was. So that instead of normally a MEC UXO company would have to go and scan the entire area, now they know exactly where to look, and they know this whole chunk has nothing. Don't even go look there, right?
Right.
Save manpower, save time, save energy. There's a lot more things that, although we do focus a lot more on orthomosaic and topographic maps, there's just so much things that they could do, and I think that's where the industry has a lot more to grow in Guam.
I agree. Wow. That podcast with Andy covered a lot of range, and there's just so much to unpack there. But for me, the takeaway was anytime he had a kernel of an idea, he took the steps that he needed to take to actualize it. And one of the most important steps was having the conversation and asking the question. And so part of what we do here is have the conversation and ask the question, try and find solutions. We hope you value that, and if you do, please give us a like, share, subscribe, or save at any of our channels. We're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and we're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and YouTube. So please, there's so many ways to consume our content, but all of it requires you to look at one of those channels. And also, we look forward to your questions. If you have any questions, please give us a shout out on one of those channels, and we'll answer your questions here. Looking forward to seeing you next time on Data Points.